Hello, readers and writers. I am Anthony L. Manna, also known as Professor Grandpa Tonio, the book guy and the writing guy. Welcome to Writers on Writing, my podcast series of conversations with new and established authors. Today, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to an author whose pen name, that is, the delightful name he uses as an author, is Professor Stork. When I set out to gather information about Professor Stork's books, I was intrigued to learn about his fascinating quest as a writer and author, and here's what I learned. Professor Stork is on a mission to write and publish books that help children build and nurture self-worth, creativity, compassion, leadership skills, and a sense of purpose. That's fantastic that you have that in your mind. You know what I mean? And I see it projected in your books, of course, as I did as much research as I could possibly find. He believes that children are the catalyst for positive change, and that reading is a way for them to begin the journey leading to a fulfilling and purposeful life. Readers and writers, today gather with me here to ask Professor Stork about his belief in the power of entertaining and imaginative stories to encourage children to explore vital life lessons, I should say issues too, and gain deep understanding of their place in the world. Let's see if his experience as an elementary school teacher, a position he held for 12 years, was instrumental in empowering him to trust that the themes and topics in his very own books are capable of sparking children's desire and confidence to make the world a better place. Professor Stork is also a dedicated social activist committed to building compassionate communities, proven by his dedication as a founder of the School Report, a nationwide company that helped relocating families identify school districts that would meet their family needs in the area where they were planning to live. Teachers and parents also take note. Professor Stork, using the name Neil Rosen, is the co-author of A Mid-Century Modern View of Education, a forthcoming book that illustrates how parents and teachers thought about education in the 1960s and the 1970s. And the book, I understand, is designed for parents of elementary children, helping them to build a strong learning-centered home environment. That's a worthy cause if I ever heard one, wow. And to strengthen their family-school partnership. That's so true. All right, so Professor Stork, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad
nice
you're here.
Introduction.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be talking with you today about your life as a writer. And so, I'll work through my prompts and my questions to you. I like to ask this to authors in particular. I say, when did you know that you wanted to be a writer, particularly a children's book author?
That is a question I get often too, and I've thought about it a lot. And I believe I've probably always wanted to be a children's book author. When I was a child, I obviously read everything I could get my hands on. And I remember one of my favorite series way back then was the Hardy Boys, which was a mystery series. And I would read it at 9 and 10 years old or 8 years old. I'd read under my covers and I'd read the Hardy Boys book. And then one day I got up and I wrote a Hardy Boys book. So I wrote my first book when I was 10, and it was a Hardy Boys adventure book. And I've always wanted to write, but then life sort of got in the way. And I did a lot of writing in between, but once I went off to college and started teaching and then started businesses and everything, it really wasn't until, and I was always jotting notes and I was always writing sequences and I was always writing down ideas and thoughts for books and stuff like that. But it was really a few years ago when I retired that I actually got to sit down and put keyboard to imaginary paper or whatever it is on your computer and started to write these books and put them together.
Yeah. Well, so it started early.
Right, it started early. And also when I was a teacher, just another quick and interesting thing, I was pretty tall and very thin and whatever when I started my career. And Professor Stork was a name that actually came from the kids in school that they called me.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah,
that's what, because that was my next idea was to ask you, I mean, where did you get Professor Stork from? Well,
right.
so it's from the kids themselves.
It's right. It's from the kids themselves, and that's where it came from, right?
Because they thought of you looking like a stork. I think that's hysterical.
Yeah.
On your on your website, you tell your visitors that you believe your books can, quote, help children build and nurture self-worth, creativity, compassion, leadership skills, and a sense of purpose. And I was intrigued. I mean, I still am intrigued by your belief that good stories and children's involvement in reading them can help children to reach these remarkable and challenging goals. How did you come to believe this, that books can do this?
Well, there are a few different ways. I mean, I believe it because I know books have done it for me and books have done it for my children. But it's not just it's not just the book alone. Each of the books I write has a theme that takes on an issue, facing the world. I mean, the Legend of the Summer Snowflake takes on plastic in the ocean and how to solve that problem. And so the book, by its very nature and by its very theme, is going to raise issues. The other thing a book, I believe, has to do is open up kids to ask questions of the parents that they're working with or that they're reading with. If you can do that, if you can get a kid as they're reading to be asking a lot of questions and spend time, that gives parents the opportunity to also raise it to another level. And that's critical. A lot of times I see kids, they get books, they go in the corner, they read the book, they put it down, they go away, they go on to the next book. They're reading millions of kids' books and they never ask questions. They never have any, they're not challenged, that type of a thing. So when I put out these books, before I ever publish one, I worked with some librarians and I worked with some teachers, and I have kids read the book. And the key thing I look for is the book raising conversation? Is it starting a conversation with a parent, with a librarian, with the teacher, with whoever they're with? And to me, that's one of the biggest signs I have of knowing when a book is going to be successful.
That's great. Yeah. And I think that that's a skill that can be taught. I mean, that we are there as their teachers. And I know in my own training teachers at the university, it was, what do you do to generate that kind of curiosity?
Right.
And I understand what you mean. I mean, like, because kids get into that, especially middle grade there, they just want to read everything quickly, and get through it. It's almost like the competition. But we can stop and ask them, to explore a little bit. And it takes good teachers,
Right.
really.
But also a good book can do that. A good book will stop a kid and have him ask or her ask a question. It can make that happen. I've seen it happen many, many, many times over, where they get to someplace in a book and they're sort of like, whoa, what did he really mean by that? And they really want to dig in a little bit. And if your book can do that, I think you've been pretty successful, because that opens the door for a teacher or a parent to really start building the the self-worth that you're looking to build, and the leadership skills. All of that comes together. One of the things I'm very focused on is the idea of purpose. And the book series I'm writing, Mila on Purpose, where the first book is #Grow Your Circle, is all about purpose. And one of the things that's so fascinating to me about purpose is it's probably the primary trait of great leaders is a sense of purpose. So if you can develop a real sense, or help a child develop their own sense of purpose, you've taken a long step to building a leader in the community and in their community, and someone who can really live a very well-lived life, as it's thought of.
That's really wonderful, because purpose, when I hear the word purpose, and I saw it so often when I was looking for your work, is a sense of clarity. There's a kind of clarity about why I am seeking, where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's also a very worthwhile value to introduce children to the fact that they can have a sense of purpose. And
Right. They
also,
they absolutely can have a sense of purpose.
yeah,
It's not that difficult to teach. It's unbelievably satisfying. I mean, kids could have a little lemonade stand and make $20 and donate it to something. And all of a sudden you've changed their lives. I mean, you've literally just something as simple as that, developing that sense of purpose that I can do something good with this thing that I did is like, can really change lives.
and I think that, well, I was going to say right here that in terms of purpose, when I was looking to your books, I was struck by the range and depth of your themes. And so I say here, environmental hazards, and that's in The Legend of the Summer Snowflake. And then I saw the power and the honor of kindness and friendship during an epidemic in
Penelope and Jack.
Penelope and Jack Together Apart, which is such a great concept, by the way, the fact that they have to reach across their barriers in a sense. And that's really a captivating title, by the way. A young girl has a hard time making a new friend. The new girl comes into the classroom. She looks different. She's from another country. And it's a lot of it is the power of friendship there and how it can change a lot of people around it, those kids, because they're so dedicated to one another. And that's Mila on purpose.
Right.
Hashtag grow your circle.
And that book, she learns all about circles, about your family circle and your friend circle and your community circle and what circles are, and all about friendship. And really with that book, and it's a boast, but it's, I think, solid, is that, friendship can change the world. And the whole idea was the hashtag grow your circle, and then the hashtag, one new friend at a time. And the hashtags come from the point that at the end of the book, what she does goes viral. And the idea that if everybody made one new friend a month, everyone in the world would be friends in a very short time.
Wouldn't it be a better world? Well, I'll tell you,
exactly. And right now, the world, values like purpose, like honesty, like leadership, like truth, there's something that we need to really build up in these next generations that are coming up, because the world is lacking at the moment.
At the moment, I wonder, it's kind of depressing, but I think if we could just move forward with a positive sense of purpose, there we go again.
Exactly.
I realized that when I went to your Amazon page, sales page, the idea about Mila on purpose, hashtag grow your circle, is considered to be a trailblazing graphic novel for children 6 to 10. All right, so first of all, what motivated you to venture into the challenging realm of a graphic novel?
Well, two things. One, the age group I've really always wanted to write for. That's really the sweet spot, 6 to 10, 11, 12, that type of thing. And the picture books I've been writing were more in the 3 to 7, 8 range, a little bit of a younger kid for the picture books. And I wanted to try to do something for kids that are a little older. I know them well, that type of thing. And I have 3 grandchildren in that age range, and all of them are reading graphic books.
Yeah.
So if that's what they want, that's where I was going. But rather than a graphic book that really has no, I'll say it differently, but really has no purpose, or real theme to it. And some of them do, of course, but a lot of them really don't. I wanted to try to put the two together. So I wanted to put the graphic novel with a book that had some weight, because I believe I taught that age group. And I believe sometimes that children that age are undervalued in terms of their ability to really think fairly deeply about things and understand things fairly deeply, and not be taught as children. They're right in that age group where they're really exploring the world and themselves and things like that. And they're perfectly capable of understanding these kinds of things.
I love that. Yeah. Because there's a movement in education right now which would defy what you just said, because it seems to me that people want to move away from that concept of children going deeper, and certainly with what what they're saying about American history, but that's another interview completely.
Yes,
You know,
it
one of
is.
the thing, one of the things I wanted to ask you about though is because I've never done a graphic novel. What about your work with your illustrator? Was it a collaboration? I mean, how did you go about that?
100%.
No.
100%. The woman who did the illustrations was an artist that I know who knows my son very well, and her work is brilliant. And she had never done a book before, and I asked her if she wanted to give this a try. And from the time we started talking about it until the time it was finished was close to 2 years.
Well, yeah.
And we went back and forth on everything. And then we had different editors look at it. You know, this kind of book has to be edited for, besides copy editing and besides content editing, it has to be edited for social sensitivity and things like that, because it's, the topic is right in there. And so she was just, I think her work is brilliant, and I'm excited to see what she does with the next book in the series. But it was a true collaboration,
Well,
in every sense of the word. Yeah.
yeah, that's good to know. Because sometimes there's kind of a disconnection between the writing of a graphic novel and the illustrating. And sometimes you know right away when there was a collaboration. And as I saw it unfold in the few pages that I was able to see on Amazon, that there's a real sense of continuity and drama unfolding in each of those frames, you know, and it's very enticing to want to get involved. And
I will send you a copy of it. I didn't realize I hadn't, but I will send you a copy of
oh no, I would love that.
That book is actually launching in October.
Oh, that's, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Available October 2022. Well, I realized that you have picture book series, you've done a rhyming dialogue story, and now you've got this graphic novel on your mind, novels.
Right.
Do you work on multiple projects at the same time?
I tend to, sort of like the answer is yes and no. I'm not sure how you write. I always have multiple projects going on at the same time, but I tend to work in spurts. I'll pick a book and I'll work on it for 6 weeks, let's say, and it goes from point A to point B. And then I'll put it down for 6 weeks and I'll work on something else, and then I'll go back to it. I like to give books rest in between versions of it, because I find that if I try to start writing and editing too quickly, I can edit right past the sweet spot of the book. But if I come back to it a month later or 6 weeks later, and it's had some time to just rest, what I call mental magnets, and be floating around up there, I usually get much better results.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I've been forced, because of some responsibility, you know, personal responsibilities I have, that I'm not able to work as diligently, let's say, or consistently on the story that I'm working on. But you know, it's really a blessing in disguise, because what's happening is it comes with me wherever I go. So in the supermarket, I think, wait a minute, they've got to talk to that horse.
Yep.
She's their pet, in a sense, you know. And then it dawns on me, I didn't do any of that when they were putting the bit in her mouth, you know. So it's that kind of thing, I think, that, as you say, lets a story rest and gather its own ideas, in a sense, you know. And I really like hearing that from you. Do you find that some books are more challenging than others?
I honestly think that with children's books, every book is challenging. I mean, but they're all challenging in different ways. The one way they're all challenging in the same way is when you're writing a book for children, especially a picture book, but also a graphic novel, which is, again, not a novel. Every word is so important. That's what makes them challenging. You don't have room to just throw some crap in there. You know, every word and every sentence is really important, and that's what makes it challenging. Then they're challenging in very different ways. I mean, some have Some have science behind them and research behind them and things like that. Others have sensitive topics that you have to be really careful the way you work through. So challenging in different ways, but children's books especially are, to say in 500 words, it would be so much easier to write 20,000 words on pollution in the ocean. To do it in 500 words, that every word becomes important. And that's one of the reasons I take time and go back to it. Most of what I do after I hit the first version is shorten it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, no, I think that's so important because I think sometimes, especially with self-publishing, that people, you can get that sense that they're rushing through this to get it over with, or they're just not being cautious about every word, and so it loses that intensity that you're expecting from a good story,
Right.
So
the other thing, Anthony, that's really helpful for me, and I'm not sure how you do much with it, when I have a draft ready, it's not the final one, but when I have a reasonable draft ready, maybe I've edited it once or twice, I always have some people read it, and with children, I have some children read it, and then I listen to what they have to say and think about that for a while, and then go back to the book, because that's really helpful.
Extremely. And I was a little reluctant about joining a writers group because I heard so many horrifying stories about the insensitivity. And yet, and I was at a meeting last night where somebody said they had a terrible experience with, with moving into a writing group. But then I had a marvelous experience. I was with very sensitive writers, and they have all published, and several of them published within the young adult YA field. And they were writing dystopian books. They were writing books about an army family, etc. And it was just like such richness. And then I would present my 4 or 5 pages, and then there was silence as they were reading. And then the feedback they gave me was enormously helpful, and it was, you had to, I was becoming very sensitive to the fact that I don't want to call it criticism. I want to call it response, and it was very helpful. So I recommend that when people ask me, well, I want to start writing for kids, where do I begin? I say, start writing for kids with some story ideas that you have and go to your writing group, and
a writing group is great, and then get feedback from your readers. I mean, really, kids will be very, very open with you and honest with you, and you take it for what it is. But still, it's useful. If the kids read a page and put the book down, you got a problem.
Yeah, I would guess so.
Yeah.
Well, I think also I'd like to ask you about if this comes up, registers for you, your habits or your routines. What do you have? You mentioned it a little bit about, and I think it was quite sufficient, where you put it down, you go away, you come back. And I asked about, writing, working on several projects at the same time. And do you do that consistently then? Is that something that you've developed as a habit as a writer?
Yeah, I always write in the morning. And I always put an hour aside in the morning, and it always ends up being 2 or 3 hours. When you actually start writing, it just goes so quickly. So I would say, at least 4 mornings a week I write. And then sometimes I'll do editing in the evening.
Yeah.
But I wake up, I don't know, I just wake up. There's always something happens when I wake up in the morning, and it's not always about the book I expect. It may not be about the book I went to bed thinking about. And I wake up with an idea, and I'll pull out that book and work on it, because I am working on 3 or 4 books at the same time.
Yeah.
But I always write in the morning, and then when I edit, I do it, a lot of it in the evening. But like you said, and it's not just what I've learned, and I've learned it over the last 3 years when I've been doing this, and it shows in the quality of the books as you write more and more, the more recent books and things like that. Not only on a writing group, but I'm a teacher, and I taught English, and I know the language pretty well, and I would never now do a book without an editor or 2 editors, different editors, content editor, copy editor. All of these people really make your book better.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what they do.
Yeah, and I would never venture into self-publishing with that same attitude. You need, if you're looking for quality, and you're looking for something that's that sparks interest, that you need, you need people who understand how language operates and what the arc of a story is, and even
Exactly.
I'm thinking even in your rhyming dialogue, what about that? We haven't talked about that very much. Why did you move into the direction of rhyming dialogue?
Actually, it's the opposite. That was actually the first book I ever wrote. I haven't really launched it yet, but that was the first book I wrote.
Ah,
And it was a lot of fun, and I had it edited, and I really like it. But it was like it was just I think it's a really fun book to read
yeah,
in the corner of my room, and it's a really fun story.
yeah.
Um, no deep meaning to it, no great purpose, you know, in the book or for the book, but it was fun. And since then, the books I've moved on to, I've wanted to move on to books that really had a little more weight and a little more purpose, a lot based on the way the world is changing. It's like it's almost becoming necessary.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, the rhyming book, I mean, what about if you looked at it as entertainment? Why not?
It is. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's an entertaining book, and I'll put it out there.
Yeah. Well, I hope
Um,
so.
and it's
Yeah.
cute. I think it is. Did you take a look at it? Did
I,
you see how it ends?
no, I couldn't find it. I saw the title. I went and looked for it, and it was not easy to find. But,
Oh,
but I
I'm
mean,
gonna send you this book because it's a typical almost Zeusian kind of book where a kid gets in trouble and gets punished and is told to go stand in the corner,
this
and
part I liked. Yeah, I
and he
saw
has and he has such a good time standing in the corner
that.
that when his mother calls him to dinner, he doesn't want to go, and he says, "Oh my God, if I don't go to dinner, then I'm going to get in trouble." But wait a minute,
That's
you know,
great. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw that kind of independence developing, and I
right,
thought this is pretty cool,
yeah,
and I love the idea of the rhyming book because I mean, you can do so much with that with kids, to have them repeat the rhyme, and that type of thing. I just think
sure,
I think it's a great idea. Um, so I say here, I'm asking some questions about your relationship with your illustrator and other book designers. I mean, you did talk about the
yep.
collaboration with your with your graphic novel person, illustrator. Other people have helped you?
Oh, lots of other people. I work in a lot of different ways, trying different things. I definitely work with a book designer. I've worked with a book designer on the last 3 books. And it's funny because most people, the illustrator is the designer, and the illustrator decides where the words go and where the pictures go and design. But lately I've been working with a designer. So the illustrator only does the illustrations, and the designer designs not only the cover, but designs the interior and chooses the font. And I never realized how much goes into that. And it's
Wow.
really a lot in terms of making a book great.
And so where did you find this designer?
The designer that I work with and the editors I work with, I actually found on Reedsy,
Oh, okay.
Redsy, and the designer I
R
work with is in
That's why.
Israel,
Yeah,
and
I'm a member of
she's
Reed.
amazing.
Oh, that's good to know. Because I mean, I kind of skip over Reedsy a little bit because I get so much email. But
Right.
that's good for me to know in terms of the book I'm working on right now. If I can find copy editor, et cetera, et cetera. But then again, I want to say to everybody who's listening, don't forget Bubblish.com. That's BUBLISH.com. And
I will definitely take a look there.
yeah, and I talked to the CEO a while back, and then I just talked to one of her consultants. And so far, there's a real sense of integrity and quality, And I'm sure you're finding this with Reedsy too, because these people are, they're out there to help us.
Well, with Reedsy, with Reedsy, it's different. You have to do the individual research
Yeah.
because these are not Reedsy editors. This is really more of like a board, a board that these people sign up on. It's like going to Angie's List or something. And so every editor in the world is there, and you've really got to try to find an editor that's got strong and a lot of background with successful
Okay.
books in the specific genre you're working with and stuff like that. The
Wonderful.
designer I found I really like is fabulous. Editors, I'll use different editors for different types of books.
Well, that's great. No, and that segues to one of my last questions, which is and I like this because I mean, I say here, what advice do you have for that person out there who longs to be a published writer of children's books? And I think one of the things you just said is that hold on to the quality and be sure that you maintain the quality and that your purpose is quality.
Exactly right. And I would say what you had said before, and I'd say it slightly differently, but the one thing I've learned more than anything else, well, it's really a two-part thing. The first part is really listen to the people you work with. Don't feel like they work for you, they work with you. If you work with an editor, listen to the editor, a designer, listen to the designer, a cover designer. That's really important to have a cover designer. But at the end of the day, you own the book. And so if you don't like what somebody says or what somebody's telling you or thinks about it, don't feel like just because you hired them as an editor or a designer, you have to do it. So it has to go both ways. Take advice, listen carefully. Most of the time they make sense, but you own the book.
That's a great, well, no, I think you answered that question so beautifully in terms of the advice you would give to someone new, is that you've worked hard, and you seek the truth of other people, but stay with it, and then realize that that one change that's being asked, maybe you don't want to move into that change. You want to hold on to
Right.
the road. Why not? I mean, that's
Exactly. And
yeah.
the one other thing to think about, which I know you think about, is selling a book and writing a book are two totally different things. They're just totally different worlds. So you need just as much advice in terms of how to market a book, especially if you're going to self-publish, as you do in terms of how to write a book, because it's an entirely different skill set. And you put all your time and effort and energy into writing these books. If nobody ever reads it, that's sad. So
That's perfect. That's perfect because there we go. Rick Light, Lite at
he's great.
Yeah, Rick Light at
Stress-free marketing.
Stress-free children book marketing.
Stressfreemarketing.com. Yep.
Yeah, here I always mess up that title, but I mean, if you look up Rick Light on Google, you'll find him. And well, I mean, I went to him. I didn't have a really good website, and he helped me work on that day and night. And got it going for me. But also, he's with me all the time. I mean, I have a lot of respect for his sensitivity to my work. And I think that's the kind of collaboration that I always wants to have. And Rick can offer that. We have to end. We're almost, yeah. So
if you're going to self-publish, you need a marketing team just as much as you need a writing team.
Yeah, and I want to say that Rick is all about marketing.
All about it.
Yeah, stress-free book marketing, and he knows that world. He's and also, I mean, I will take this particular interview that I'm doing with you, and he will help me edit it and get it out there, and it's just a collaboration I adore.
That's great. Just make sure my website's on it.
So okay, yeah, no,
visit me.
Yeah, no, I'll be sure to. All right, thank Professor Stork. Thank you,
Anthony. Thank you for
welcoming me and our listeners into your world as an author. You can visit Professor Stork at www.professorstork.com to find lots of information about his books, his future writing projects. There are book reviewers, appreciative responses to his books there. I love that, how you, after everyone, when you mention a book, you've got parents and other people responding to the book. That's really neat. You'll find a recording of this interview, people, in the media section of my website, which is Anthony Manna, that's M-A-N-N-A, anthonymannabooks.com at Writers on Writing Podbean Podcasts. And along the way, I've interviewed a lot of really interesting writers and very insightful writers that have given me a lot to think about. And so, Professor Stork, I say thank you so much for that as well. I mean, I just, I always walk away from these interviews knowing that it's been a good one because I've learned so much. So thank you so much. And
thank you, Anthony. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
you're welcome. And yeah, and we'll be in touch, I'm sure. We'll be in
Good.
touch. All right.
We will.
Take good care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.